Welcome back. While maintaining a flourishing trade partnership with the EU, which takes up more than 1/3 of Israeli exports and imports, Israel has been accused of attempting to marginalize any European role in the Arab-Israeli peace process. On Wednesday, Tzipi Livni said Israel wants to change what it calls Europe's outdated perception of Israel in the hearts and minds of Europeans. She even asked them not to intervene in the current peace negotiations and let the parties handle it.
Let us continue the bilateral process as we decided in Annapolis. Even if it takes more time, we don't need any kind of intervention by the international community with bridging proposals. Even though it takes more time, any idea of trying to bridge gaps when things are premature, this can lead to a clash, deterioration, and violence.
Well, do the Europeans have the wrong impression of Israel simply because the EU presented their version of the possible Israeli-Palestinian peace? On the core issues, the EU advocates resolving the status of Jerusalem as the future capital of two states and working towards the reopening of the Palestinian institutions, including the Orient House, which once served as the PA's de facto foreign ministry in East Jerusalem. On security, the EU is willing to train, equip and supervise Palestinian security forces or to supervise implementation of a final status agreement. Regarding the refugees, the EU vision includes an agreed, just, fair and realistic solution must be reached, adding that the EU would be willing to establish and operate an international mechanism to compensate and rehabilitate Palestinian refugees. Meanwhile, the EU feels that Israel must transfer additional large swathes of this territory to Palestinian security control and expects a complete freeze of all settlement activities, including natural growth, including in East Jerusalem. Well, still with us are our guests in Ramallah, Mustafa Barghouti, in Copenhagen, Margrethe Auken, and in Tel Aviv, Ambassador Oded Eran, let's go to you now. I'll give you an opportunity to respond to what Ms. Auken said in the first half of the program. And one of her points was that Israel just hasn't committed to its promises made at the Annapolis conference.
Yes, we did. Last week, the Israeli government decided and used force to evict Jews from Hebron. This is a very painful decision. And how does the European Parliament react? It does ban or it does postpone a vote on upgrading their relations with Israel. The Israeli society, the Israeli population in the south of Israel is subjected to missiles daily. Today we had another 10 rockets falling on Israel, on Israel's population. I think that every country is entitled to take security defensive measures against the population from which these missiles are being launched. I think that the international community is more concerned than these two gentlemen, the woman and the person who spoke, than these two on the issue of Hamas, for example. If you ask the president of the Palestinian Authority what is his view on the Hamas, you'll get even a harsher opinion than Israelis one on this issue. So I think that the Israeli government, the Israeli society showed in the last few years willingness to incorporate Europe in the process. Europe is now
let's take
on
this
the
to Mustafa
border
Barghouti.
between Gaza and Egypt.
Let's take this to Mustafa Barghouti. Interesting point being made there regarding the PA's view of Hamas. The European Union still lists Hamas, Islamic Jihad and other armed Palestinian groups in its list of terror organizations. Mustafa Barghouti, is that ever likely to change?
It will change, but that's not the issue. Israel has been occupying the occupied territories for 41 years. Hamas is only 18 years old. Hamas did not exist. Al-Jihad did not exist. Even Hezbollah did not exist. All of this happened while Israel continued to occupy the Palestinian territories. And then you have Tzipi Livni coming out and saying we shouldn't have premature solutions. What is premature? 41 years of occupation is not enough for her to end this injustice, to end this violation of human rights? And let me say, regarding Annapolis, Annapolis was presented as a peace process. And everybody agreed that the Americans would lead that process. What did we have since Annapolis? Since Annapolis, Israel increased settlement activities and expansion at a rate that is 38 times more than before Annapolis. Since Annapolis, the Israeli government issued contracts for settlement building, which is more than before Annapolis by 550%. During Annapolis, we had 521 military checkpoints. They brought Mr. Blair, the Prime Minister, ex-Prime Minister of Britain, to solve the problem. Since this year, during this year, instead of 521 checkpoints, today we have 699 checkpoints.
Okay.
So where is the implementation?
Okay.
Where is the change? And let me say just one last
very
point.
quickly.
I think the attitude of the Israeli gentleman is very condescending. He behaves as if Israel is a superpower which would dictate what the EU should do or what the United States should do. This behavior must end, and he must answer me to one question. Why Israel would get preferential treatment when it is violating 4th Geneva Convention and international law that should organize its behavior in an occupied territory?
Fine. Oded Aran, do you want to answer that?
No, I don't want to answer. I'm not in a court where I have to answer the gentleman from Ramallah. But I will ask him. Let's say that everything that he's saying is right, and we want to reach an agreement. With whom exactly does he suggest to us to reach an agreement? With Mahmoud Abbas, who's about to leave in 20 days, is his position with the Hamas in Gaza or with the Fatah in Ramallah?
Okay, I'm not going to get Mustafa. I'm not going to get Mustafa Barghouti to answer this.
He was negotiating.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I negotiated with the Palestinians,
sorry, Mr.
and I
Aran,
very much want to have an agreement.
I have to interrupt you. Miss Oken has been marginalized in this part of the program. There's only a minute left. Yes. I want to ask her for her final thoughts on this.
I want to answer that he should have it with the national unity government in Palestine.
No. Can I answer Mr. Iran just saying that Israel has not delivered one single step in this process. And if you mention what is happening in Hebron as a proof of the goodwill of Israel, while we have this enormous enlargement of settlements, constantly violation, all the other parts of it, and including what's happening in Hebron, which I think was a shame for Israel. And of course, EU should not, in this situation, upgrade their relations. And I really hope that we will still have the majority to continue harsh pressure on Israel in order to obtain real good relations, and that can only be based on good progress on the ground.
In the process.
No, we don't.
May I respond to the question?
Okay, let's get a final thought from Mustafa Barghouti. Mustafa Barghouti, very, very briefly.
Yeah, I want to respond to the question. Israel can have an agreement with a unified Palestinian leadership, with a national unity government. We had that national unity government elected democratically in the most democratic way, and it was Israel that put it under siege, and it was Israel that fed this division. We can have a national unity government again if Israel stops its manipulation to prevent Palestinians from getting unified. They can have a unified leadership, and they can make agreement with a unified leadership from Palestine that is democratically elected.
Okay,
you made your point. Sorry to interrupt you again. I hate to do this, but I have to interrupt you.
Ms. Oken and gentlemen, we could continue this discussion for another hour, and it's been intriguing, and you've all made your point. Thank you very much for joining us here on Inside Story, and thanks a lot to you, the viewer, for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story as well. We always welcome your comments, questions and suggestions. You can email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Bye-bye for now.